especially when we think about navigating a typical day out in the world, there is this underlying assumption of just total unpredictability.
Right. Yeah. Like anything could happen.
Exactly. We tend to view stepping out of the front door as stepping into, a completely unscripted jazz performance.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Yeah, you just kind of assume you have to improvise your way through the grocery store or the morning commute or the office.
And that feels like an environment where literally anything could happen at any moment, which is, why operating in a second language can feel so incredibly overwhelming for people.
Because you are constantly anticipating chaos.
Right. You're bracing for it.
But when you actually step back and analyze the raw data of everyday human interaction, that jazz performance looks a lot more like a highly structured, well-rehearsed play.
It really does.
The reality is, our daily conversations are remarkably predictable. So, welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. I am your host, Lily. And before we get into the incredibly satisfying mechanics of today's topic, I have a really quick favor to ask you. It's a small one.
Yes, you listening right now. If you enjoy unpacking the world with us, please take just 1 second right now to like this video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel.
It makes a huge difference.
It really is the absolute best way to support the show and ensure we can keep making these deep dives for you. Now, I want to immediately introduce my co-host, Ryan, who is sitting across from me. Today, we are looking at a comprehensive breakdown of everyday English conversations.
And our mission today is highly practical. We are basically extracting the exact essential phrases that you need to navigate a full day in English.
The survival kit, essentially.
Exactly. But more importantly, we are going to look at why these specific structures actually work.
Yeah.
Because fluency isn't just about memorizing a dictionary.
Right. It's not just a vocab test.
No, not at all. It is about understanding how language functions as a tool to lower the cognitive load of daily life. I love that, lowering the cognitive load. So let's look at the foundational layer of a typical day. Before you can worry about navigating social nuances or making friends, you usually have to just run basic errands.
You need to survive first.
Right. You have to acquire the fuel to get through the day, which usually means stepping into a coffee shop.
Oh, the classic coffee shop interaction. I mean, if you analyze it, it is not a free-flowing exchange of ideas.
Not at all.
It is an incredibly tight, rapid-fire sequence of binary choices. It begins the moment you approach the counter, almost universally, with some variation of the phrase, "What can I get for you?"
And that opening question, it establishes a very specific power dynamic, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The barista holds the structure of the transaction, and your job as the customer is, it's simply to provide the variables.
So you initiate with the core request. You say, "Can I have 1 coffee, please?" And then you basically enter the flowchart.
The great coffee flowchart, yes.
You have to specify the temperature, hot or iced. Let's assume it is a sunny day, so you say, "An iced coffee, please."
Right, and then you hit the size variable, small, medium, or large.
And you lock it in, "A medium, please."
It is a highly efficient algorithm. But part of mastering this script is also knowing how to handle the inevitable road bumps without panicking.
Like when you want a pastry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For instance, you might step outside the main flowchart to ask for a specific item using the phrase, "Do you have banana bread?"
And if they don't, the response you have to really tune your ear to catch is, "I'm sorry, we don't have," followed by whatever the item is.
Right. "I'm sorry we don't have banana bread."
You hear that, you process the rejection of the variable, and you just pivot seamlessly to an alternative. You say, "No problem, just the chocolate cookie, please."
And the underlying logic here throughout this whole interaction is brevity.
Keep it short.
Yes. The less extraneous language you use, the less room there is for misinterpretation. So when the barista asks about milk, the most effective response is highly direct.
Like, just black, no milk.
Precisely. You finalize the data input and then ask the closing question of the transaction, which is, how much is it?
I have to admit, looking at it this way makes it seem almost algorithmic.
It really does.
Like, if we are reducing a morning coffee run to a flowchart of binary variables, doesn't that make the speaker sound like a robot? Are we stripping the humanity out of the interaction here?
It is a fair concern. But the reality of human behavior actually operates in the exact opposite way.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about it. When you aren't expending massive amounts of cognitive energy trying to invent a grammatically perfect sentence from scratch, You actually have the mental bandwidth to be human.
Oh, I see. You're not panicking internally.
Exactly. You have the energy to smile, to use a warm tone, and to make eye contact. The predictable structure frees up your personality.
That makes a lot of sense. It is kind of like an actor who has memorized their lines so well that they can finally focus on the emotion of the performance.
That is a perfect analogy. Yes.
Yeah. And you can take that exact same machinery and apply it to a slightly more complex environment, like, say, a clothing store.
Right, because transactional English is essentially a fill-in-the-blank script.
Yeah, you have your coffee, you walk into retail, and the environment changes, but the underlying social script is nearly identical.
The opening cue just shifts slightly. So instead of, "What can I get for you?" a retail worker will typically ask, "Can I help you?"
And your response initializes the new flowchart. You say, I am looking for a t-shirt.
And once again, the variables multiply. You have to discuss color preferences.
Saying something like, I like blue or green.
Right. And you have to negotiate fit, waiting for the staff to ask the crucial diagnostic question, which is, what size are you?
And you input your data. I am a medium. But here is where the stakes of the transaction get a bit higher, right? Because you have to actually navigate physical space.
Yes, which requires arguably the most essential phrase in any retail environment. You have to ask, can I try it on?
If you are going to memorize just one phrase for shopping, that is the one.
Absolutely.
Because asking, can I try it on, acts as a sort of verbal key. It unlocks the spatial gate, prompting the staff to give you the exact information you need.
They'll point and say, the fitting room is over there.
You step into the fitting room, you try it on, you make your decision, and then you have to formally close the interaction.
Right. You signal the end of the deliberation phase with a definitive, I will take it.
And then you answer the final transactional variable, cash or card.
It really is just a game of fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Once you memorize the core structure, greeting, request, clarification, payment.
You just swap out the vocabulary.
Exactly. You swap coffee for a t-shirt, blue for green, cash for card.
So simple when you break it down. But, once you execute that transaction and you walk out of the store with your medium coffee and your new shirt, you are immediately confronted with a completely different category of social problem.
Yes. The unpredictable outdoors.
You are back on the street, and you realize you have absolutely no idea where you are.
The cognitive overload of an unfamiliar environment kicks in. You need directions.
And to get them, you have to do something that feels honestly incredibly intrusive. You have to stop a stranger who is just going about their day.
It's a high-friction moment.
It really is. To do this without causing offense, you have to deploy an auditory interrupt mechanism. Just two very simple, very powerful words.
Excuse me. Functions as a kind of social permission slip.
A permission slip.
Yeah, because when someone is walking down the street, their brain is in a default internal mode. They're thinking about their day, their job.
They are definitely not thinking about you.
Right. If you just start shouting questions at them, you trigger a defensive response.
Yeah.
So, acts as a polite buffer.
It eases them into the interaction.
Exactly. It signals their brain to switch to active processing while simultaneously communicating, I am polite and I am not a threat.
It kind of paves the way for vulnerability. Once you have their attention, you can just lay out the problem. I am lost. Can you help me?
Or, if you want to be more direct and kind of bypass that vulnerability, you can deploy target-specific questions.
Like, where is the train station? Or where is the museum?
Or, in an absolute emergency, where is the bathroom?
The most important question of all. But asking the question is really only 10% of the work, isn't it?
Oh, totally. The real challenge of asking for directions is tactical listening.
Because when the stranger answers, they might surround the crucial information with, like, a lot of colloquial fluff or filler words.
Oh, yeah, you just got to head down past the old bank.
Right, and if you try to translate every single word they are saying in real time, your brain will just freeze.
Precisely. You have to tune out all that noise and listen exclusively for the directional verbs and propositions.
So what are the phrases we're hunting for?
You're hunting for go straight, turn left, and it is on the right.
Just the anchor words.
Yes. If you can isolate those specific commands, you can build a mental map, regardless of whatever else the person is chatting about.
Okay, so you process that directional data. You go straight, you turn left, and you arrive at a bus stop to wait for your transport to the museum.
Success.
But now you are standing shoulder to shoulder with a complete stranger. And it is quiet.
Oof. Physical proximity without interaction creates a very distinct kind of social tension. We are just hardwired to assess the people immediately around us.
And to diffuse that tension, people universally turn to the classic conversational anchor, which is the weather.
The old reliable.
Right. You might throw out a positive observation like, it is a beautiful day today, isn't it? Now, wait, I have to challenge this practice a bit.
Okay, go for it.
Throwing out a line about the weather just feels so utterly robotic and superficial to me. Are we actually building a connection here, or are we just filling dead air because silence makes us anxious?
It is very easy to dismiss weather talk as superficial fluff, I'll give you that. But from a sociological perspective, it is a highly functional social ping.
A social ping, like a sonar.
Exactly like sonar. When you are standing at that bus stop, the weather is the one completely safe, objective reality that you and the stranger are enduring together.
Okay, that's true.
So by commenting on it, you aren't actually analyzing meteorology. You are sending out a ping that says, I acknowledge your presence, we share this reality, and I am safe to interact with.
Wow, okay. So it is basically a low-stakes test of their willingness to engage.
Exactly. And interestingly, negative weather observations are often much more effective for bonding than positive ones.
Really? Why is that?
Because human beings are psychologically wired to bond over shared adversity.
Oh, we love to complain together. It builds instant solidarity.
It really does.
Saying something like, it is so cold today, brr, or I can't believe this rain, do you think it will stop? Invites commiseration.
And you just plug in the basic descriptors: sunny, cold, raining, hot, windy.
And you instantly establish a micro-community of two people just suffering through the elements together.
Right. If they respond to that ping with agreement, saying something like, I know I need an umbrella, they have essentially accepted the invitation to connect.
Let's follow that timeline forward. You survive the rain, the bus arrives, and you finally reach your destination.
Out of the weather at last.
Let's say it is a neighborhood party, or maybe a language class. You have officially exhausted the weather small talk. How do you transition from a shared observation about the rain to actually establishing an identity?
Well, you have to formally introduce yourself, which usually relies on the fundamental script. Hello, my name is, followed by your name, and then the standard polite acknowledgement. It's nice to meet you.
But the problem with "it's nice to meet you" is that it is a conversational dead end.
It really is.
It is a closed loop. If you just say that and smile, the conversation immediately flatlines. You have to bridge the gap with follow-up questions.
And context-dependent questions are highly effective here. A simple, are you enjoying the party?
Okay.
Keeps the volley going.
Or you can use geography to open up the dialogue by asking, do you live here?
Yes. Geographical questions are fantastic because the responses naturally generate entirely new conversational branches.
Like if they say, no, I am visiting, you immediately have the opportunity to ask where they are from and what brought them here.
And if they say, I live in the next town, you can ask about their commute or their favorite local spots.
But inevitably, the conversation will drift toward the most common and perhaps most fraught question in adult introductions.
Ah, yes. What do you do?
Meaning, what is your profession? People answer, I am a teacher, or I am a writer. Now, I find this question incredibly restrictive.
It could be very loaded.
It feels evaluative, almost like we are sizing up each other's economic utility rather than trying to make a friend.
That is a very astute observation. Tying identity exclusively to a profession can trigger a whole host of anxieties. Hierarchy, status, or imposter syndrome.
Right, because not everyone derives their self-worth from their paycheck.
Exactly. This is why shifting the axis of the conversation to hobbies is a profound pivot. Instead of asking about work, you ask, what do you do in your free time? Or what are your hobbies?
It just shifts the focus entirely from obligation to autonomy. You are asking what they choose to do when no one is forcing them to do it.
Which is such a better vibe.
You are essentially asking them to talk about their joy.
And when people talk about their joy, their entire demeanor changes. The vocabulary opens up. They might say they love reading books, playing guitar, or hiking.
It immediately moves the interaction from a formal exchange of resumes to a genuine exploration of shared human interests.
Completely.
So let's say you hit gold. You ask what they do in their free time, and they say they love hiking, and it turns out you love hiking too.
Perfect match.
You spend 20 minutes having a fantastic conversation about local trails, but eventually, the party is going to end. How do you upgrade this person from a great conversationalist to an actual friend in your life?
You have to cross the threshold of making a plan. And this is where the highest level of social vulnerability occurs.
Because you are explicitly asking for their future time.
Right. Making an invitation in a second language could induce a lot of panic. but breaking it down into manageable steps lowers the stakes significantly.
Okay, so how do we start?
It starts with the initial probe. Are you free on Saturday? Or a more casual, what's up?
But the crucial mechanism here is immediately providing a reason, right?
Yes. You follow up with, do you want to go to the park? The weather is beautiful.
Oh, bringing the weather back in. So attaching a specific activity and a reason dilutes the intensity of the invitation.
Exactly. Makes it feel less like a high-stakes formal date and more like a casual shared activity based on your previous conversation.
And if they agree, you have to immediately pin down the logistics to make it real.
You deploy the framing question. What time is good for you?
Which is incredibly considerate, as it hands the power of scheduling over to them.
Right, they might reply, 2 p.m. is perfect. Then you establish the physical anchor. Where should we meet?
And you suggest a very specific, unambiguous landmark, like let's meet at the big clock tower.
That is the ideal scenario. But the reality of social interaction involves friction. You have to be prepared for the possibility of a no.
This is where people absolutely freeze. You ask if they are free on Saturday, and they say, I'm sorry, I am busy on Saturday, I am visiting my family.
And the immediate internal reaction is often pure panic.
You think, oh no, I misread the entire interaction, they don't like me, I've made things awkward.
It is vital to separate a scheduling conflict from a personal rejection. The script provides a built-in safety net for this exact moment.
So what's the safety net?
You simply absorb the new information and pivot. You say, no problem, what about Sunday?
I love that. It is helpful to view making plans like a gentle, cooperative game of tennis.
A game of tennis.
Yeah. You serve a scheduling idea over the net. Saturday. If they can't return the ball because they are visiting family, it is not a personal attack. They just literally couldn't reach the ball.
Oh, that makes total sense.
So you casually volley an alternative. Sunday. And you keep gently rallying back and forth until you both find a time that works for your respective schedules.
It framed the process as a collaborative puzzle rather than a test of your likability.
Okay, so the plan is solidified. You are meeting at the clock tower on Sunday. The entire day has been a triumph.
You're doing great.
You navigated the coffee shop flowchart, you survived the retail spatial negotiation, you asked for directions, you bonded over the rain, and you successfully made a friend.
A full day.
But now you face the final and arguably the most delicately handled social maneuver of all. You have to leave.
The art of the polite escape.
It's so tricky.
Exiting a conversation without leaving a negative residual impression requires adherence to a very strict social contract. The golden rule is universally understood. You cannot simply stop talking and walk away.
The abrupt exit is a massive breach of etiquette.
Oh, huge.
It communicates a sudden devaluation of the other person. To prevent that, you have to execute a very specific 3-part formula for a graceful departure.
3 steps. Let's hear them.
Step 1, provide a reason. Step 2, offer validation. Step 3, deliver the final sign-off.
Let's analyze that first step. Providing a reason. The standard phrases are pretty straightforward. I have to go now, I have to work. Or simply, it is getting late.
What is fascinating to me is how much anxiety this specific step generates. People constantly overthink the reason.
They really do.
They feel like, I just want to leave isn't a valid excuse, so they invent these elaborate, complex fictions about needing to check the oven or move their car.
Which almost always creates more awkwardness because the lie is, well, it's usually transparent.
Exactly.
The architecture of a polite exit does not require a sworn affidavit. It is getting late, or I have to go now, are complete boundary-setting sentences.
They don't need evidence.
No, they do not require further justification, provided they are immediately followed by the second step, which is validation.
And validation softens the abruptness of the departure. You use phrases like, it was nice to talk to you, or I enjoyed our chat.
This step is crucial because it clarifies your motivation.
It tells the other person, I am leaving because of external logistical factors, not because I find your company tiresome.
It preserves the warmth of the interaction. And finally, you execute the third step, the final sign-off, which formally releases both parties from the social contract.
Saying things like, see you later, have a nice day, or, depending on the context of the calendar, have a great weekend.
It ties a neat little psychological bow on the entire interaction, allowing both of you to walk away feeling good about the exchange.
When you look at the entire scope of a day through this lens, it drastically changes how you view language learning. Fluency isn't just about wrestling with grammar rules.
Not at all.
It is about mastering the underlying rhythm of these everyday scripts.
From the highly structured binary choices at the coffee shop counter, to the vulnerability of the directional interrupt, to the three-part formula of a polite goodbye. These structures exist to help us navigate the world together with minimal friction.
It is an entire ecosystem of human interaction. To quickly recap the journey we took today, we started by lowering the cognitive load of ordering coffee using the flow of options.
The flow chart.
We navigated retail space by asking, "Can I try it on?" We learned the auditory psychology of interrupting strangers for directions using, excuse me,
And we examined why complaining about bad weather is actually a secret bonding mechanism.
we moved from strangers to friends by pivoting the conversation from economic utility to personal joy, discussing hobbies instead of jobs.
We treated making weekend plans like a collaborative game of tennis.
And finally, we broke down the three-step formula to gracefully exit a conversation without ruining the vibe.
The overarching takeaway here is that perfection is never the goal. These scripts are tools, but the engine that drives them is effort.
Just putting yourself out there.
Exactly. A simple hello delivered with a genuine smile will almost always bridge the gap, regardless of whether you drop a vocabulary word along the way.
Politeness and the genuine desire to connect translate across every linguistic barrier. Now we want to turn the focus over to you.
Yes, let's hear from the listeners.
Head down to the comment section and let us know. Where are you actively putting these scripts into practice? Are you testing the waters at a local coffee shop? Are you navigating small talk with colleagues at the office?
Or maybe striking up conversations at the park.
Let us know, because articulating your experience in the comments is fantastic practice in itself.
We read through as many as we can, and it is incredibly rewarding to see how these abstract concepts are being applied in real-world scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we initiate our own three-step polite escape, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over.
Ooh, a thought experiment.
We spent a lot of time today analyzing how heavily we rely on the weather and hobbies as our universal safe topics to break the ice. They are the great physical equalizers when we are standing shoulder to shoulder at a bus stop.
Right.
But our environment is rapidly changing. We're spending more and more of our lives interacting in digital spaces rather than waiting at physical bus stops.
Mhm.
So what do you think the new weather of future small talk will become?
Oh, that is interesting.
What will be that universal, objective, shared experience we use to signal to a complete stranger on the internet that we are safe to talk to?
That is a profound question. As the environment shifts, the social scripts will inevitably have to evolve to keep up.
They certainly will. Well, on that note, we've covered a lot of ground today, and it is getting late, so we have to go now.
It was incredibly nice to talk with all of you today.
I enjoyed our chat as well. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.